War is one of the most costly events in history, not only in terms of finances, but also in human lives. These wars have left deep scars and consumed vast resources. Below are some of the most expensive wars in history. World War II 1939 to 1945. This was the most expensive war in history. After the war ended, the countries involved spent enormous amounts of money. United States. The total cost was about 341 billion USD, equivalent to around 5 trillion United States dollars today when adjusted for inflation. Germany's war costs were about 272 billion United States dollars. Soviet Union. The cost for the Soviet Union was around 192 billion United States dollars. This cost includes not only money for the military, weapons, and military campaigns, but also for post-war reconstruction and aid to allied countries. It remains the most expensive war in terms of both finances and human lives. American Civil War 1865. The Civil War between the North Union and the South Confederacy in the United States was extremely costly at the time, amounting to about 92 billion United States dollars, equivalent to around 1.6 trillion USD today when adjusted for inflation. Union North. The northern states spent about 69 billion United States dollars. Confederacy South. The southern states spent about 23 billion USD, most of which was financed through loans and printing money, leading to severe inflation. This war was fought between two regions within the US, but it had profound effects on the economy and politics of the country. Gulf War 1990-1991. After Iraq invaded Kuwait, the United Nations organized a military campaign led by the US to liberate Kuwait. Cost: about 61 billion United States dollars, equivalent to 110 billion United States dollars today. US and allies. The US covered the majority of the cost, but allied countries also contributed significantly to the financial burden. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, and other nations helped finance the military campaigns. This war primarily took place in the Middle East, aiming to prevent Iraq from continuing its occupation of Kuwait and to protect Western strategic interests. Korean War 1950-1953. The war between North Korea, supported by China, and the Soviet Union and South Korea, supported by the United Nations, mainly the US, lasted for 3 years and was very costly. Cost: about 30 billion United States dollars at the time, equivalent to over 100 billion United States dollars today. US. The US covered about 67% of the total war costs, with the remaining portion funded by allied countries like the UK, Canada, Australia, and others in the UN. Although the war ended in a ceasefire, it did not bring a lasting political solution and led to the prolonged division between North and South Korea. Vietnam War 1955-1975. The Vietnam War was an expensive conflict for both the US and the Communist forces in North Vietnam. US costs: about 168 billion United States dollars, equivalent to 800 billion United States dollars today when adjusted for inflation. The US spent an enormous amount on deploying troops and supporting military forces in South Vietnam. Costs for Vietnam. While there are no official figures on Vietnam's costs, the country suffered massive losses in both financial and human terms. This was an extremely costly war for Vietnam, affecting both its economy and infrastructure. The war lasted over 2 decades and had a profound impact on politics and society, not only in Vietnam, but also in the US and other countries. World War I 1914-1918. Although shorter than World War II, World War I still came with a massive financial cost. Cost: about 208 billion United States dollars, equivalent to 3 trillion United States dollars today when adjusted for inflation. Countries involved in the war, such as the UK, France, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, spent vast sums on military forces, weapons, and campaigns. This war also led to severe economic downturns in many nations. Conclusion: these wars not only left severe financial consequences, but also resulted in enormous loss of life and the destruction of economies. They were not just military events, but global crises that deeply affected the political and social fabric of the world for decades to come.